She lost her legs and war left for dead by her own kind. Rescued by a human asterisk, the crimson son of Kepler 4 for to be, cast long shadows across the battlefield where Captain Zara Nix lay bleeding among the twisted metal and scorched earth. Her once-proud Valkyrian armor, gleaming silver with intricate blue markings, now bore the savage wounds of plasma fire and shrapnel. The lower half of her body screamed in agony before falling into terrifying numbness. "Command, this is Captain Nix requesting immediate extraction," she whispered into her communicator, her voice barely audible above the distant rumble of retreating hover tanks. Static crackled back at her, followed by the cold voice of General Korath. "Captain, your unit has been declared lost. Resources cannot be wasted on the disabled. You served with honor." And the transmission cut abruptly, leaving Zara staring at the alien sky in disbelief. The Valkyrian military code was clear. Weakness meant abandonment. She had enforced it herself countless times, never imagining she would become its victim. Her silver eyes, once fierce with battle fury, now reflected only the growing darkness of despair. Around her, the bodies of her fallen squad lay motionless, their dreams of glory reduced to nothing more than carrion for the scavengers. Hours passed like centuries. Zara's enhanced Valkyrian physiology kept her conscious far longer than she wished, each moment a fresh hell of pain and betrayal. The twin moons rose overhead, casting an ethereal glow over the devastation. She closed her eyes, preparing for the final darkness, when the soft crunch of footsteps on debris made her tense. "Holy hell, there's someone alive over here." The voice was unmistakably human, filled with an emotion Zara had never heard from. Her own kind, genuine concern for a stranger. Through blurred vision, she saw a figure approaching cautiously. The human male wore medical insignia on his dusty uniform, a red cross gleaming against the olive-drab fabric. His brown hair was disheveled, and his face bore the exhaustion of someone who had seen too much death in too short a time. Zara whispered in accented English, a language she had learned for interrogation purposes. "Just let me die with dignity." The human medic knelt beside her, his gentle hands already assessing her wounds with professional efficiency. "Name's James Harrison. But everyone calls me Doc, and I didn't spend 6 years in medical school to let people die on my watch, regardless of what species they are." His touch was impossibly gentle as he examined her injuries. Zara had expected rough handling, perhaps even torture, but James worked with the same care he would show his own people. When his fingers brushed against her forehead to check for head trauma, she felt an unexpected warmth that had nothing to do with fever. "Your legs, ... double quotes." James paused, his expression grave. "I'm not going to lie to you. The damage is severe. But you're alive, and where there's life, there's hope." "My people have abandoned me," Zara said bitterly. "I am nothing now. Broken, useless." James looked directly into her silver eyes, his own brown ones burning with determination. "Then they're fools. I've seen you fight, Captain. Your tactical skills are legendary even among my people. That mind of yours isn't broken, and that's what makes you dangerous." Despite her pain, Zara felt something stir within her chest, a feeling she couldn't identify. No one had ever spoken to her with such respect after seeing her weakness. Valkyrian society, injury meant shame. But this human saw something else entirely. "I can't move you here," James continued, checking his scanner. "Too much radiation from the plasma strikes. But there's a cave system about 2 clicks north. If you trust me, I can get you there and start proper treatment." Trust. The word hung between them like a bridge across an impossible chasm. Zara studied the human's face, searching for deception, for the cruelty she had been taught to expect. Instead, she found only honest determination and something that looked almost like tenderness. "Why would you risk your life for an enemy?" she asked. James smiled sadly as he prepared a portable stretcher. "Because the moment I became a doctor, I swore an oath to do no harm. That doesn't have exceptions for species or nationality. Besides," he added, with a gentle humor that surprised her, "I've always been a sucker for helping stubborn warriors who refuse to quit." As James carefully lifted her onto the stretcher, Zara felt her world shift in ways that had nothing to do with movement. For the first time in her adult life, she was completely vulnerable, dependent on another being for survival. Yet instead of the terror she expected, she felt an estranged sense of safety. "James," she whispered as he began the careful journey toward the caves. "Yeah, thank you." His smile in the moonlight was like nothing she had ever seen, pure, uncomplicated. "Kindness. Don't thank me yet, Captain. We've got a long road ahead of us." The cave system James had mentioned turned out to be far more than simple shelter. Deep beneath the planet's surface, he had established a hidden medical facility, complete with surgical equipment, recovery beds, and enough supplies to treat a small army. The walls gleamed with bioluminescent panels that provided soft, healing light. "How did you manage all this?" Zara asked, as James carefully transferred her to a proper medical bed. The cave's walls were lined with equipment she recognized as advanced human technology, far beyond what a simple field medic should possess. "Let's just say I've been preparing for a different kind of war," James replied, his hands working efficiently to establish 4 lines and monitor connections. One fought with compassion instead of weapons. Over the following days, as James worked tirelessly to stabilize her condition, Zara learned that her rescuer was far from ordinary. He had been a brilliant surgeon before the war, volunteering for frontline duty against his superior's wishes. His unofficial mission was to save lives on both sides, philosophy that had earned him both underground support and official censure. "The brass thinks I'm naive," James explained, while checking her vital signs on the 3rd day. "They don't understand that every life we save, human or Valkron, is one less reason for this war to continue." Zara watched him work, fascinated by his gentle efficiency. Among her people, medical treatment was clinical, impersonal. But James hummed softly while he worked, his touch always careful and reassuring. When pain medications left her disoriented, he stayed nearby, his quiet presence an anchor in the storm of recovery. "Tell me about your world," James said one evening as he prepared her dinner. Actual food, not the nutrient paste she was used to. "What's Valkros like when it's not at war?" The question caught Zara off guard. No one had ever asked her about home except in tactical briefings. "It's beautiful," she said slowly. "Our cities float among the crystal formations in the upper atmosphere. The light refracts through them at sunset, painting everything in colors you've never seen." "Sounds incredible. Do you have family there?" "I did." Zara's voice softened. "My younger sister, Kess, she wanted to be an artist, not a warrior. But the military took her when I was promoted to captain. It was ... an incentive for my loyalty." James's expression darkened. "They held your sister hostage to ensure your obedience. It's the Valkyran way. Personal bonds are weaknesses to be exploited." Even as she said it, Zara realized how cold it sounded. Watching James's obvious distress at her sister's fate, she began to see her people's methods through different eyes. "That's not strength," James said quietly. "That's fear. Truly strong society doesn't need to threaten families to maintain loyalty." Their conversations continued over the following weeks as James performed multiple surgeries to repair what damage he could. Between procedures, they shared stories of their respective worlds, their dreams, their fears.
Ow.
Zara found herself looking forward to these talks with an anticipation that both thrilled and terrified her. "Why'd you become a doctor?" she asked one day as he changed her bandages with characteristic gentleness. "My little brother died in a hovercar accident when I was 15, James replied. The medic who responded was overwhelmed, understaffed. Jake bled out, waiting for help that came too late. I swore that day I'd never let someone die because help wasn't available. Zara reached out instinctively, her hand covering his. The touch sent electricity up her arm, and she saw James's eyes widen in surprise. "I'm sorry for your loss," she whispered. For a moment, they remained frozen, her pale hand against his darker skin, both acutely aware of the contact. James's thumb traced gently across her knuckles before he seemed to remember himself, and pulled away. "We should focus on your recovery," he said. But his voice had grown husky, as days turned into weeks. The boundaries between patient and doctor, enemy and ally, began to blur. Zara caught herself watching James work with growing admiration. Dedication was unlike anything in her military experience. He treated her not as a conquered enemy or a burden, but as someone worthy of care simply because she existed. "I've designed something for you," James announced one morning, wheeling in a contraption of metal and circuitry. "Prosthetic legs. They won't be as good as your original limbs, but they'll give you mobility." Zara stared at the devices in amazement. The craftsmanship was exquisite, the technology clearly beyond standard military issue. "You made these." "For me? Well, I couldn't let Captain Zara Nix remain grounded forever. The galaxy needs its most stubborn warrior back on her feet." As James fitted the prosthetics and began teaching her to walk again, Zara felt something she had never experienced in her 30 years of life. Each stumbling step, each patient encouragement, each steadying touch built something precious between them. When she finally managed to walk the length of the cave unaided, James's proud smile meant more to her than all the military commendations she had ever received. "You did it, Zara. I knew you would." Standing there on artificial legs, but feeling more whole than she ever had, Zara realized with crystal clarity that she was falling in love with the human who had saved not just her life, but her soul. 3 months after James had found her dying on the battlefield, Zara stood at the cave entrance watching the sunrise paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Her new legs, constantly improved by James's tireless engineering, allowed her to move with almost her old grace. But it wasn't physical mobility that had transformed her. It was the man who sang softly while tending his hydroponic garden deeper in the cave. "You're up early," James's voice came from behind her, warm with sleepy affection. He joined her. At the entrance, 2 cups of coffee steaming in his hands. "Wanted to see the sunrise," Zara replied, accepting the cup gratefully. "On Valkros, we lived so high in the clouds that I rarely saw the actual surface of our world. This is ... different. Beautiful." James studied her profile as she gazed out at the alien landscape. The harsh lines of the warrior had softened during her recovery, revealing a woman of striking beauty and unexpected vulnerability. "You're different too," he said quietly. "From when I first found you." "How so? You smile now? You laugh at my terrible jokes. You hum along when I'm working." He paused, gathering courage. "You've become yourself instead of just a soldier." Zara turned to face him fully, her silver eyes reflecting the morning light. Over the months, she had watched James care for her with a devotion that went far beyond medical duty. She had learned his habits, his expressions, the way his face lit up when he made a breakthrough with her prosthetics. And somewhere along the way, gratitude had transformed into something far more powerful. "James," she began, then stopped, unsure how to voice feelings her culture had never taught her to express. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "I know," he said softly. "I feel it too." The space between them evaporated as James cupped her face gently in his hands. "Is this what you want, Zara? Really want? Because once we cross this line, there's no going back." Instead of answering with words, Zara rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was electric, months of growing attraction and emotional intimacy culminating in a moment of perfect connection. James's arms encircled her, holding her close as if she might disappear. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "I've never felt anything like this," Zara whispered against his lips. "Neither have I," James admitted. "I've been fighting it for weeks, telling myself it was just proximity or gratitude." Or Zara silenced him with another kiss, deeper this time, her hands tangling in his hair. When they separated again, James rested his forehead against hers. "People would consider this treason," he pointed out. "My people abandoned me to die," Zara replied fiercely. "You gave me life, hope, love. If that's treason, then I'm proud to be a traitor." Their relationship deepened rapidly over the following days. James would work on improvements to her prosthetics, while Zara shared advanced Valkyran tactical knowledge, helping him understand how to better avoid detection. But their collaboration extended far beyond the practical. In the evenings, they would sit together by the bioluminescent panels, Zara's head on James's shoulder as he read to her from books he had brought to the cave. Sometimes she would tell him stories of Valkyrian mythology, her voice growing soft and musical in a way that made his heart race. "Tell me about the Song of the Silver Moons," James requested one night, his fingers gently stroking her hair. "It's a legend about two lovers from warring clans," Zara began, her voice dropping to an intimate whisper. "They were forbidden to meet, but every night they would sing to each other across the crystal canyons. Their love was so pure that the moons themselves came down to earth to bless their union. How does it end? Her song became so beautiful that it stopped the war. Clans realized that hatred had nearly destroyed something precious and irreplaceable." Zara tilted her head to look at him. "Do you think love really has that kind of power? With you? I'm starting to believe it could move planets." Their first night together was a revelation for both of them. Zara had known only the harsh efficiency of military encounters, where physical needs were met quickly and without emotional connection. But James worshipped her body with patient reverence, his hands and lips mapping every inch of her pale skin, until she trembled with sensations she had never imagined possible. "You're so beautiful," he whispered against her throat, his breath hot against her hypersensitive skin. "Every part of you. Even these." Zara gestured to her prosthetic legs, still self-conscious about the mechanical joints and synthetic materials. James's response was to trace gentle kisses along the line where flesh met machine. "Especially these. They're proof of your strength. Your refusal to surrender, they're part of you, which makes them perfect." Later, as they lay entwined in the soft bioluminescent glow, Zara traced patterns on James's chest with her fingertips. "I used to think love was a weakness," she admitted. "Something that made warriors vulnerable. What do you think now?" "I think it's the strongest force in the universe. Made you risk everything to save an enemy. It's making me question everything I was taught about honor and duty." Looked up at him seriously. "I love you, James Harrison. Completely. Irrevocably. More than I ever thought possible. More than I ever thought possible." But their newfound happiness was not to last undisturbed. On a morning that had started like any other, the cave's proximity alarms began shrieking. James rushed to his monitoring station while Zara grabbed the weapons they had salvaged from the battlefield. "3 Hover Scouts Valkron configuration," James announced grimly. "They're conducting a search pattern. It's only a matter of time before they find the cave entrance." Zara's blood ran cold. She recognized the tactical formation. It was one she had designed herself. That's a hunter-killer squad. They're not here for prisoners. James was already grabbing essential supplies and jamming them into backpacks. "There's an exit tunnel that leads to the forest. If we move fast, we can reach the mountain passes before they track us." As they prepared to flee the sanctuary that had become their world, Zara felt the weight of an impossible choice settling on her shoulders. People were coming, and soon she would have to decide once and for all where her loyalty truly lay. The mountain passes of Kepler-4 were treacherous enough without being hunted. James and Zara had been running for 3 days, using every ounce of their combined tactical knowledge to stay ahead of the Valkyrian search teams. Each night they huddled together in whatever shelter they could find, their love the only warmth in an increasingly hostile world. "We can't keep this up much longer," James panted as they crested another ridge. His medical training had prepared him for many things, but not for extended mountain survival while being pursued by alien commandos. Zara's enhanced physiology was handling the stress better, but even she showed signs of exhaustion. More concerning to James was the haunted look that had crept into her silver eyes. "They're using hunting patterns I developed," she said quietly. "Every evasion route I choose, they anticipate. They know how I think." "Then we don't think like you," James replied, pulling her into his arms despite their precarious situation. "We think like us. Together." That night, sheltered in a shallow cave barely large enough for both of them, their desperate situation only intensified their need for each other. James made love to Zara with urgent passion, both of them aware that each touch might be their last. Her hands clutched at his shoulders as he moved within her, their bodies speaking a language that transcended species and circumstance. Promise. Me something, Zara whispered afterward, her head pillowed on his chest. Anything. If they capture us, if this ends badly, promise me you won't regret saving me, won't regret loving me. James tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. Zara Nix, loving you is the best thing I've ever done. Even if the whole galaxy came apart tomorrow, I'd choose you again, every single time. Their tender moment was shattered by the whine of hover engines echoing off the canyon walls. The hunters had found them. It's movement in Sector 7. The amplified voice spoke in the harsh Vakran military dialect. Converge on the thermal signatures. James and Zara burst from their hiding place, running hand in hand through the treacherous mountain terrain. Behind them, plasma fire scorched the rocks where they had been moments before. Zara's prosthetic legs, designed for mobility rather than speed, struggled with the uneven footing. This way, James shouted, pulling her toward a narrow passage between two massive boulders. But as they squeezed through the gap, Zara's left prosthetic caught on a jutting rock. The mechanical joint sparked and seized, sending her tumbling to the ground. Go! She shouted to James, fumbling with the damaged leg mechanism. I'm slowing you down, not happening. James knelt beside her, his medically trained hands working frantically to free the caught prosthetic. We go together, or not at all? Sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the narrow passage. They were trapped. Captain Zara Nix. The voice that emerged from the shadows was coldly familiar. Commander Thane stepped into view, his black armor bearing the insignia of the Valkron Elite Guard. Behind him, 3 other soldiers kept their weapons trained on the couple. Thane, Zara said, struggling to her feet with James's help. Still, following orders like a good little soldier, I see. And you're still a disgrace to the uniform you once wore. Thane's gaze swept contemptuously over her prosthetic legs and civilian clothes. Now I see you've found new ways to betray our people. The only betrayal here is yours, Zara shot back. You left me to die on that battlefield, this human. Showed more honor in one day than you've shown in your entire career. Thane's laugh was harsh. Honor? You call consorting with the enemy? Honor? You've become soft, Nix. Weak. Pathetic. She's the strongest person I've ever met, James interjected, moving protectively in front of Zara, despite the weapons pointed at him. And if you can't see that, then you're the one who's weak. Silence, human. Thane raised his plasma rifle. Your interference ends now. Zara stepped forward, her hand finding James's. I'll come with you willingly if you let him go. He's just a medic. He poses no threat to the Valkran Empire. No deal.
High Command has specific orders regarding human collaborators.
Thane's finger moved toward the trigger. In that moment, time seemed to slow. Zara saw the slight tensing of Thane's shoulders that preceded firing. Without hesitation, she threw herself in front of James just as the plasma bolt discharged. The energy struck her center mass, sending her crashing into James's arms. But instead of the killing blow Thane had intended, the bolt was absorbed by a personal shield generator. 1. James had secretly installed in her jacket during their time in the cave. Impossible, Thane snarled, raising his weapon again. But Zara was already moving. Her months of recovery and training with James had given her something she'd never possessed as a soldier, the ability to fight not just for duty or survival, but for love. She struck with inhuman speed and precision, her prosthetic legs providing unexpected advantages as she used their mechanical strength to devastating effect. The brief battle was savage but decisive. When the dust settled, Thane lay unconscious, and his soldiers were disarmed. Zara stood over them, breathing hard but victorious. We need to go, she said to James, who was staring at her in amazed admiration. More will come. As they fled deeper into the mountains, James couldn't help but marvel at the transformation he had witnessed. This wasn't the broken warrior he had found on the battlefield, nor was it the gentlewoman he had fallen in love with in the caves. This was Zara, complete, fierce and tender, strong and vulnerable, a perfect fusion of warrior and lover. I thought I was going to lose you, he said when they finally stopped to rest. Never, Zara replied, pulling him close. We're bound now, James. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Above them, the alien stars wheeled in their eternal dance, witnesses to a love that had already survived war, betrayal, and pursuit. But their greatest test still lay ahead. 6 months after fleeing into the mountains, James and Zara had built something remarkable in the hidden valley they'd discovered. What had started as a simple survival shelter had grown into a small settlement, complete with gardens, workshops, and medical facilities. They weren't alone anymore. The supply drop from the Resistance arrived this morning, reported Kale, a young human soldier who had deserted after witnessing Valkyran prisoners being executed, or medical supplies, and 3 more families requesting sanctuary. Zara looked up from the communication array she was monitoring. Any word from the Valkyran dissidents? Commander Vex's ship should arrive tomorrow, Kale confirmed. She's bringing 12 more refugees from the forced conscription programs. James squeezed Zara's shoulder as he passed behind her chair. Over the months, word of their sanctuary had spread through underground networks on both sides. Humans disgusted by their military's brutality and Valkyrans fleeing the Empire's increasingly oppressive policies had found their way to the hidden valley. Hard to believe it started with just the 2 of us, Zara mused, watching human and Valkyran children play together in the communal area below. Love has a way of growing, James replied, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Like everything else worthwhile. Their relationship had deepened beyond mere romance into true partnership. Zara's tactical brilliance combined with James's humanitarian vision had created something neither government had imagined possible. Functioning multi-species society based on cooperation rather than conquest. Captain Nix, incoming transmission on the diplomatic frequency, announced Tess, their communications specialist. It's General Morrison from Earth Command. Zara and James exchanged glances. Months they had been sending detailed proposals for peace negotiations to both human and Valkyran leadership. Most had been ignored or rejected outright. Put him through, Zara decided. General Morrison's weathered face appeared on the screen, his expression unreadable. Captain Nix, Dr. Harrison. I'll be direct. Your settlement has become an embarrassment to both our governments. Then perhaps it's time for our governments to be embarrassed, Zara replied coolly. Perhaps it is. Morrison's response surprised them both. There are factions on both sides growing tired of this war. Your little experiment is caught there. Attention. James leaned forward. What are you proposing, General? A formal ceasefire? Neutral ground? 3 days of negotiations with representatives from both species? Morrison paused. You two would serve as mediators given your unique ... perspective. The offer hung in the air like a lifeline neither dared to grasp too quickly. What's the catch? Zara asked. If the negotiations fail, both governments have agreed to classify your settlement as a legitimate military target. Complete annihilation. The weight of responsibility settled on their shoulders like a mantle. The lives of everyone who had found refuge in their valley now depended on their ability to broker peace between civilizations that had been killing each other for years. We'll do it, James said, without hesitation. 3 days later, the valley buzzed with tension as delegations from both governments arrived. The formal negotiations took place in the community center James and Zara had built together, its walls decorated with artwork created by both human and Valkyran children. The Empire's demands are simple, declared Ambassador Corex, his scarred face reflecting decades of military service, complete human withdrawal from this sector, and reparations for war damages. Unacceptable, shot back Admiral Chen from Earth Command. The Valkyran Empire initiated hostilities. If anyone owes reparations, it's them. For hours, the arguments continued in circles, old grievances and mutual hatred poisoning every exchange. James and Zara watched their hopes for peace slowly crumbling. Finally, Zara stood. Enough, she said quietly, but her voice carried absolute authority. You want to know what the real cost of this war is? Come with me. She led the entire delegation to the valley's memorial wall, where the names of war dead from. Both species were carved in black stone. These are the children who will never grow up. The parents who will never return home, the lovers who will never meet, she said. Every single name represents a choice to value pride over life. James joined her, taking her hand. 6 months ago, Zara was dying on a battlefield, abandoned by her own people. I was a medic watching good soldiers die for causes neither side could properly explain. We had every reason to hate each other. Instead, we chose love, Zara continued. It's not just romantic love, but love for life itself. Love for the possibility that differences could be strengths instead of weaknesses. She gestured to the thriving community around them. Look what we've built together. Human engineering and Valkyrian energy sources. Earth agriculture and Valkyros. Atmospheric processors. Children learning both languages, both cultures, both ways of seeing the universe. This is what peace looks like, James added. Not victory for one side or the other, but victory for life itself. Ambassador Codex stared at the memorial wall for a long moment. My son's name is on this wall, he said quietly. Killed in the Battle of Arcturus Station. My daughter died at Kepler Station, Admiral Chen replied, her voice thick with emotion. She was barely 19. For the first time in the negotiations, the two leaders looked at each other with recognition rather than hatred.
Out.
They were both parents who had lost children to a war that had forgotten its original purpose. What do you propose? Codex asked finally. The treaty signed that day became known as the Valentine Accords, named for the valley where love had conquered fear. It established a framework for cooperation, cultural exchange, and joint exploration of the galaxy. More importantly, it created a model for resolving conflicts through understanding rather than violence. 1 year later, James and Zara stood on the same ridge where they had shared their first sunrise. Watching ships from a dozen worlds descend toward the now thriving city below, their settlement had become a beacon for peaceful cooperation throughout the galaxy. Any regrets? James asked, his arm around his wife's waist. They had married in a ceremony that blended human and Valkyrian traditions, officiated by representatives of both species. Only one, Zara replied with a smile. I regret that it took almost dying for me to find you. Well, in that case, I'm glad. You're such a stubborn warrior. Otherwise, I might never have met the love of my life. As they kissed beneath the alien stars, the lights of their city sparkled below like earthbound constellations. In the end, their love story had become more than just a romance. It had become proof that the universe's greatest force wasn't gravity or electromagnetism, but the simple, revolutionary power of two hearts choosing each other across the void.